Hey guys, Mike here, MF Custom Garage. Listen, I'm just going to give a real quick introduction to this video this week and a quick talk. It's not going to be long. I just kind of was hoping I could hook you guys, to be honest with you. We did a podcast type thing here with my best friend, and I want you guys to hopefully enjoy this podcast and give us some feedback in the comments as to what you think of it and how it all went. And like I said, we're talking with my best friend for the last 45 years. So anyway, guys, like, share, subscribe, do the thing. And I'm out with the intro. But if you stick around to the end of the video, you'll see some pretty cool radio-controlled cars and trucks and boat and everything else. So, and I think you should really enjoy the discussion that we have. Anyway, thanks. Mike out. Hey guys, Mike here, MF Custom Garage. So I'm sitting here right now with, I've kind of mentioned him and I know he's made some comments. My best friend Jay. We're just going to kind of do an intro and talk about how me and Jay met. And we're sitting here in front of a whole bunch of cars, as you can see, radio controlled stuff. And yeah, so we'll go from there and we'll do a little bit of talking and see how this goes. Yep. So anyway, I'll let you kind of introduce yourself, I guess, and go from there.
Well, my name is Jason. Mike and I have been friends since 1979. So it's been a long road. But yeah, grew up together in Calgary, and yeah, it's been buddies ever since.
Yeah, it was the first memories I can ever remember. It was 1979. I was in grade 1, and you were in kindergarten, and I remember your mom bringing you to school because you guys were in transition from Valleyfield to
we were
Malin Heights.
Yeah.
And I remember her dropping you off to go to kindergarten.
Yep.
In about the middle of the day, actually, I think it was, or sometime, like, because you probably would do half days.
Yeah, well, that's a better memory than I can.
Yeah, but I remember her driving that green Impala. You guys.
Yeah, I got 72 Chevy Impala.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how far back it goes. And then, so we both grew up in the same neighborhood, and the neighborhood was Malin Heights. And I guess the neighborhood means a lot to us. We did a lot of crazy things in the neighborhood over the years.
Yep.
Growing up there, and you know, that's one thing that is still a little bit nice. I know Calgary's changing, but at least the neighborhood is sort of still there.
Yeah, it's pretty unchanged. Really.
Yeah. And just, I guess for the record, you still live in the neighborhood.
I do, yeah, I never left.
Jay bought a house sometime just after high school. I'm thinking when, probably about 93, 94,
I'd be 97.
Yeah, okay, 97, that makes sense. So, yeah, he's still there today. Same house, same yard.
Yep. Not much has changed.
Changed your girlfriend a couple times. Got married, but
yeah, now we have a wife.
Yeah.
Staying there. We're not changing that.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So, yeah, thinking about that and thinking about, you know, the things we used to do. Remember the Sears bikes?
Yeah, and that was a bit of a fluke. We had no idea we had the same bikes until.
All right, so yeah, we were talking about the Sears bikes, and so I got my Sears bike. I was, can't remember if I was 5 or 6. It was 1979, so was that make me 6? So I was 6 years old. We had moved to the house in Malin Heights, and I got a Sears bike, and I rode it one day. I got it that morning. I rode it at our old house, and I rode it one day at the new house, and where the brick was, I hit the brick and actually drove a piece of brick in my finger. Really great. Wound up in the hospital. But that's when I moved to the neighborhood, and funnily enough, another funny story about that is that in the neighborhood, there's a service station there, and we'll get into it maybe a little tiny bit in this thing, but my dad worked at that service station in 1966, and he told me a story about how he looked at show homes up there because he was working there, and that was back in the Larry Mayhew days, before our days of Clements and everything else. But yeah, he had actually sort of looked at our house, he thinks, before we ever moved into it. It was like a dream that was never going to come true. And then by 1979, here we were moving into it.
And it was a show home.
Yeah, it was a show home.
It was one of the demonstrators from the builder.
It was impressive to say the least. As a young kid, I was very, very fortunate to get to live there in the cul-de-sac. The basement was fully finished, and the basement was weird. Dad told me when he went to look at it as a show home, there was like pool table in the basement, sort of like we had growing up. But you know how the floor was all marked out?
Yeah.
That was because the dart board and everything, that was all still there. That's what the lines on the floor were for and all that. So it was set up as a rec room when they did the tour of the house.
Right.
And that's where they did the sales as well. And that's why that whole room was finished.
Yeah.
And of course, my back room and all those back rooms were all done in paneling by the builder.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was unique at the time. So,
Yeah, most of them weren't built over.
no, no. But those two in the corner there, including the 4-level split that we know who owns it now, used to be Brody's parents.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. And then you know who owns it now, so do I.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a show home, Dad told me. And then at the far other end, when they finished the other end, there was two down there in the far corner. That was show home.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I found some pictures actually of the neighborhood going back to 1966, the day, the grand opening of the service station.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, him, Dad, and Larry Mayhew. And yeah, you can see that the only thing up there in the crescent was kind of interesting.
And I think every teenage kid from 1970 something to 1990 something worked at that gas station.
Yeah, in Dad's year there was a bunch, not as many. Like Dad's and Larry Mayhew's year, there wasn't as many because they did a lot of things themselves. And then after that, in the Clements era, Tom Clements was the later leaser and the owner of the service station, and he. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he employed almost every care kid in the neighborhood, and then some he shouldn't have.
Yeah, well,
but
back in the days with the full service gas station, you could get a job at 16.
Yeah, and I spent the better part of my high school years there for sure. And before that, down at the Calgary Stampede grounds in the Roundup Center and whatnot. Yeah, that's something you'll never forget growing up in the neighborhood. Neighborhoods aren't like that anymore. No, I noticed when I went back there, when me and the old lady went to the show of lights down at the zoo, and we stopped in the neighborhood. Like that's one thing I'll say. Like the neighborhood, like there's still grocery store. There's still feels like the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know?
It does.
So then I was thinking about when we went to grade 1 to grade 4 and some of the crazy shit we got. Some of the crazy shit I did, which we don't want to get into a lot of that. So that shit would get you thrown in prison in today's day and age, I think.
Yeah.
Especially like the Lusick thing and some of the.
Well, I was telling my wife that we used to pack rocks into snowballs and whip them at kids. Back into an ice ball.
Yeah.
She's like, you did what?
Yeah, it'd be tough. You couldn't be.
God.
Yeah, you couldn't be like today.
Like if you didn't come home bleeding, you were not doing it.
Hey, and trust me, there were kids that were older than me, and unfortunately, I got held back one grade. So yeah, I got tortured a lot of times. A lot of times, I can tell you. But it made us what we are today. That's the other thing.
Yeah, well,
You know,
yeah.
And
When you lip off the older kids and then they all pin you down and just
yeah,
shut their ass
that's
to your nose.
you learn real quick. Well, you learn how to be fast. I learned how to be fast. There's some people that can say I was pretty quick back when I was young.
Yeah.
I know. Jay's dad tried to want to race me on a 10-speed bike one time.
Yeah, I did go well.
So, yeah, but, and then those 4 years kind of led into school, and unfortunately, me as a kid, I think I was bored a lot of the time, and kind of ADD to say the least, and so Jay continued on in Malin Heights Elementary for grades 5 and 6, and I went to venture in another path, which eventually it's kind of funny because all the schools that I went to fed into our high school.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was kind of weird. It was a different journey for me, but they all kind of came back.
Yeah.
And when I came back after, what they considered some special bullshit help and everything else for ADD and everything else, what it just made me was even a little tougher and a little meaner at times, and a little bigger chip on my shoulder, which was noted by my father and yours and other people along the way. But yeah, when you're riding the city bus to school in grade 4, things change a little bit.
Yeah. Well, they were a little bit rougher schools.
Yeah, and you learn how to deal with some different characters and stuff like that. But I got no regrets. Made me what I am today. So, and then when then in grade 9, I came back. They had actually put a special teacher into the Jays Junior High School, and so I came back, and that was an interesting year to come back. Just in general, I had a whole different outlook on things, even than what you guys did, from being, I guess, a little bit more having to deal with things going to those schools.
Yeah.
Made you a little more, streetwise and, just crap you had to put up with and everything else. But the coolest thing I thought about that whole experience coming back, even though I almost didn't get to go a couple of times, was when we went on that trip.
Yeah, grade 9 trip. Yep.
And
that was quite a deal.
And you can kind of, I don't know, you can elaborate a little bit on what it was.
Do things like that anymore. And it was grade 9, which would have been 1989 for us, was the last year of that trip. So it was an option that you took in junior high. And so it was a learning experience. You had to learn about everywhere that you were going on the trip, about the people, the plants, the animals. And so it was basically a trip down to the Four Corners area of the states: Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and California.
And we started out in Moab, Utah, where we went White River rafting on the river for a couple days, and
Arches National
Park, Mesa Verde,
Mesa Verde,
Tucson, Arizona. Or all the places I can remember. I mean, we got a book.
There was a ton.
There was a ton.
It was a 2-week bus trip,
Yeah.
basically. I think we landed in Utah.
Yeah, we landed in Utah, Salt Lake City.
Yeah, and we got on a bus with the teachers and everything, and away we went.
Yeah, and we
actually crossed down the border into Mexico for a day.
Yep, and we did. We went to Tijuana.
Yep.
And that was a little bit of an experience too.
Which is kind of weird when you think about it now, because
it's absolutely weird.
Like nobody had passports or anything. You had a note signed by your
parents say you go to
your
Tijuana, Mexico. And
third.
Tijuana, Mexico is still Tijuana, Mexico.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a house down there. I'll never forget it as long as I live. They had a fence made out of mag wheels. I don't know if you've seen it because I was in a different group. The other thing that was screwy for me, and just having a little bit more street smarts than these guys growing up in the city, was I was partnered with a girl, actually a decent looking teacher, for Mrs. Kavanaugh.
Oh, yeah.
For my liaison or whatever.
Chaperone.
And that was different going to Mexico with her.
Yeah.
Like there were some things said and shouted out on the street. I guess we'll never sort of forget. And
80s are different.
Yeah, and it put my guard up, being that, like I said, I had a little more living on the street experience than you did, and being downtown Calgary and just seeing a lot more things, right, at a younger age. And I was like, Mexico was I realized what Mexico was really all about in a short period of time, in a few hours. So, and that was my first Mexico experience too.
Yeah. So we came back across. We went back up then through California and to Disneyland. And
I remember sitting in. I've got a picture of me actually it's still in the house. I was sitting in the Knight Rider car, at Universal Studios, and we went to an LA Dodgers game where Trevor almost got us into a fight.
Yeah, the Dodger game.
Because the Calgary Flames were in the playoffs. Remember that?
No.
No, and there was some stuff mentioned outside, and so people took offense to it and that was about the time too Gretzky had gone down there.
Oh yeah.
And LA and Calgary were fighting it out. Trevor being a hockey kid like me, was that. The other thing I remember clearly on that trip being in LA was the golfing stuff in Anaheim or wherever it was.
Oh, yeah.
And the night we were there, and I remember teeing up a golf ball into the parking lot
Oh, shit.
on a big golf course.
Sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who all was with me, but I did. I teed up this golf ball into the parking lot. Now, this is something that in today's day and age, kids would wind up in jail.
Yeah.
But I did it, and
Yeah.
the crap with the bumper boats, and just, it was pretty rowdy when you think about that night
Yeah.
in general when we were there. But it looked like something off the movie from the Karate Kid.
Yeah.
And I remember the
totally,
water
yeah.
slide being right beside it, just like that whole setup, right?
Yep.
And that's
Yeah.
so that's one of the memories that I clearly remember, that setup being the same, and you know, later on the Karate Kid. So I guess that then sort of brings us into high school
Yep.
and starting to drive.
Yeah, and you drove first because you had been held back a grade in 1, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And you and me, yeah, and go on.
being a little bit older than us by a year, like you broke your leg in grade 10. We were riding the bus.
We rode the bus an extra 6 months because of my
Yeah,
ski.
because of your leg.
Because
Yeah.
I went skiing and busted my leg up and all that shit. And we should have been at that point. And prior to that, the summer prior to that, somewhere in there, we had took the 66 Ford. Remember, we had it in the back alley with the crap helmet and the other crap helmet. And we're not getting into that. But anyway, remember we took the intake manifold off and we put tires on it.
Yep.
And it was a 66 Ford, just like the Galaxy we have now, but a four-door.
Yep.
And this car has got some history with us. I mean, scaring the shit out of the kids with it, running it.
Oh, yeah, we were doing
It
things
had,
we shouldn't have
we
been
were doing tons of things we shouldn't have. And I'm not worried about talking to him no more because even, well, your dad's alive, but he's so old that he can do nothing to us now. So. But, yeah, we took this car, and I clearly remember this. We had taken it for its maiden voyage. You remember that? Ripping around Sir John Franklin?
Yep.
And I remember it was a 289, 3 on the tree, 2-barrel carb. It had 320 gear in it, and we took this thing out, and I clearly remember, and I never drove this thing before in my life, we just went helling around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I remember getting rubber about where your grandparents is on, what road is that?
8th Avenue?
8th Avenue, yeah, I guess it would be 8th Avenue. I was thinking around the top, McKinnon Drive, down on the 8th Avenue. I remember shifting first to second, and we got rubber.
Yeah.
And we were just like two kids that were just like, you know, in love. And I guess it didn't bother us ripping around the neighborhood because we were ripping around on the neighborhood on dirt bikes, motorcycles,
Oh, yeah.
and go-karts for years before that even, right? So just ripping around the neighborhood didn't seem like nothing. I think about it today, and, you know, and that same car, I can tell you a story. So I went to work later on. Brian O'Sullivan was working with Tom Clements at the time at the service station. And you and I were probably in about grade 11, and we were running that car at that time pretty hard. And that car had a little bit of a reputation for itself, definitely being kind of fast, even with a 3 on the tree and a bunch of jacked up shit. We didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
And but Brian O'Sullivan used to tell me he was working at the Petrocan. So yeah, I was talking about with Brian O'Sullivan there working at the service station. He told me one time, he goes, every morning I'd listen for you guys going to school. He'd be working in one of those shitty bays. And yeah, he said, one time you guys tried to make the light. Well, you made the light. He says, that was a given. But and he's like, the Galaxy through the intersection there, well, basically both tires off the ground, or 4 tires off the ground. And I thought, yeah, well, that was probably us for sure, you know, like. But yeah, that Galaxy, we drove the hell out of it. We raced it a bunch of times. And, you know, that's kind of, I was telling Jay, the last time I can remember racing that car, we raced a Beaumont. I think it was a Beaumont or a Chevelle down on Barlow Trail. We were headed out to the races, actually, out by Associated Grocer. That's the place. Yeah. And we'd go out there and we'd watch guys a hell of a lot faster than us back then race. But we got into it with this Beaumont and with the old 3 on the tree, and we kind of stayed with that Beaumont, and I think we shocked the shit out of him. Like he later told me it was just a souped up 307 Beaumont, but yeah, it's still the old 289 just revved its way right through it all, and yeah, and all the things. And I don't know, you probably got a couple stories maybe of this thing. I don't know if you got anything that you can think of.
No, well, I just remember going to the go-kart track. There was basically just old tires set up in a course at this abandoned tire factory. And we would go down there and root through and find something that would match, and we'd mount it at school,
Yeah,
and then blow them off.
Blow 'em
the next
off.
weekend.
blow them off. But I remember taking guys for, everybody thought that car at one time was slow. And I remember loading up about 4 of them and taking them and scaring the shit out of them with it. And yeah, but yeah, we just blow those tires off and go get 2 more and mount them at the school or wherever. Yeah.
Well, there was always some challenger.
Yeah.
There was always somebody that wanted to.
Yeah.
So you'd go running your mouth off.
Yeah.
And then
Oh, for
they
sure.
want to challenge you. And
Yeah.
It was on. So yeah.
Yeah. So it started out pretty young, racing and street racing and everything else. And then that's later on, and it was, Jay had a few. Well, what first vehicle you had was actually Volkswagen, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a '63 bug. Yeah. Lucille.
Lucille.
Yeah, my dad named that car. I don't know why, but yeah, Lucille.
Pretty sure you didn't make it home and you guys would put the cylinder heads and drop in the engine.
Yeah, I ran on 3 cylinders when we brought
Yeah.
it. And I ran out of gas.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember things not being good. And the scary thing about that one is I remember you guys doing all that work, being involved a little bit, but not much, because thank God, because Volkswagen still no. But I remember you guys doing that in the old cinder block garage still.
Yeah, that little single garage, yeah.
Yeah, and that was something. Your dad had a love for Volkswagen. There was no question about that. And yeah, that was neat.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think you got that 69.
Yeah, we had that 69
The
Chevy.
one that you and Trev had to run in with.
Yeah, just a 6-cylinder, no option.
Yeah.
3-speed on the phone.
I'm pretty sure it had 410s in the back though.
Yeah.
It was actually, if Jay would have been so cheap and put a clutch in it, it was probably faster than a lot of 350 trucks that went to our school.
Yeah,
But I think Jay melted the clutch for a year in that thing that should have been,
yeah.
if I'd have drove it one time, it probably would have been history.
When you're making $6 an hour, you don't have a lot of
Yeah,
money.
yeah. Working at the bingo palace.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and then after that one got smashed up, you got that white roofing truck. Well, I can't even remember what color that truck was when you got
It
it.
was great.
It was gray, and it wound up, I call it the white roofing truck, because I
Yeah.
remember you had that when we graduated high school, but I remember we painted it,
Yeah,
we got a box for it, it was an old square box Chevy, what was it, 78?
7.
Of 77, wagon wheels on it, and we had salvaged a bunch of parts from other trucks.
Yeah, we kind of built it from
Yeah.
nothing beat up roofing truck into something looking half-assed respectable, really.
Fixed it all up in our garages, and trust me, Jay has the nicest garage, but a lot of it probably happened in my garage, which is still a, yeah, that thing needed to, I think about my dad and all the stuff he did and why we didn't have a newer garage. It's beyond me, but anyway, we won't get into that. But, yeah, and then we painted it, Doug Elbruce's place.
Yep, we painted it.
White,
With the cylinder heads on
yeah,
it.
we painted it Western, Elcad enamel or acrylic enamel, I remember that, because we went to, Bumper to Bumper on 52nd, because that's where I was buying some paint from,
Yep.
and it was Western acrylic enamel or Elcad enamel, I can't even remember which one, but we painted her up and it was shiny, it looked
It
white,
looked pretty good.
instead of wagon wheels on it, and,
For a couple of guys with no money, it looked pretty decent.
yeah, and well, one thing we haven't talked about is Jay owns Barney, and he has for lots of years, and Barney's here, and been on the channel, but
Yep.
prior to that one, he had one, we called it the Rough Rider, remember that?
Yeah, that was an 81.
That was a beautiful truck. That was an 81 square body
Yeah.
Silverado.
It was like the first nice truck.
It was
I
the
had,
first time
even though
I-
it was an older truck.
It was the first time I was ever really jealous of Jay, to be honest with you. He had a nice truck.
Yeah.
That was a nice truck.
It was good. Yeah, it was a good truck.
Painted by Lou's Auto Body, I think, from the people he bought it from. And at the time I was working in body shops, I think that's how that kind of come about, because Lou's was huge. And it was basically Saskatchewan Rough Rider colors, gray on the bottom,
Yeah.
green on the top.
It was factory GM colors. And
Yeah,
color scheme,
and it was a beautiful truck. And then in the end, we took the shitty 305 out.
Yep.
We put a 4-bolt 400 in it that you and I had built in one of the garages somewhere. Didn't know what we were doing. I know it had a 262 ISTE Super Cam in it, performer intake, and the only problem with that truck was, well, we didn't think that engine made as much power as it did, but we knew it did because when it was rolling, that truck was actually pretty stout. It had a 700 R4 with 308 gears in it. Now, that was the stupidest thing I ever thought of from General Motors in my mind, but that truck would have really rolled out. It had some 373s in it. Because later we kept that motor. We pulled that motor out, we put another motor in there, I can't even remember, and then the truck, eventually you got rid of it, I guess.
I sold it to buy this.
Right.
Yeah.
So Jay buys this, and we had the 400 for a long time sitting around. And we freshened it up when you put it in the gray 4x4.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's when I actually figured out how fast it was. You want to know why? Because one night, again, that truck was kind of high geared. She had some 31s on it, and I'm like, this thing, I don't know. We were sitting on 16th Avenue up by Old House in Abbeyville, and we pulled the transfer case in, and we let that thing fly at 16th Avenue towards going towards your work camp. And all of a sudden we had, so in the back we had about a 620 gear, and that thing flew. That old 400 did something. Later, that 400 come out of there. I think I traded you 350 for about 300.
350 back.
That 350 that was in there actually ran really good. That was in the gray truck, and it had headers and all the normal stuff. And it was a good truck. And I took that 400 and later put it in an S10 that I had for a lot of years, and it was pretty stout.
Yeah,
it worked really well. It's pretty stout. That truck actually had been down into the 12s a couple of times when I owned it. That truck kept hot rodding alive for me when I unfortunately had the joys of starting to have children. And that put a damper on it for a lot of years, those first few years when I was working my ass off in Calgary. Landscaping, working for Wade, all of it. And luckily, guys like you and Mike, and we did a lot of work back then when I think about it. We were all working jobs and we were all landscaping at night and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, when you're young and you
buy
your first house,
bought our first houses,
whatever.
And,
it was not a lot of money to go around.
And so then that brings us to this somewhere in the middle of that. And I think at the time I was working, I don't think I was working at Wage yet when he bought this. I think I was still working for Concourse Auto Body when he bought this, somewhere around there.
Eli was around 93, 94.
Yeah, it was somewhere in there. It might have been at Ford too, working at Marble Ford as a body guy still. And Jay had bought this truck, and this truck is still to this day. I mean, this is a premium piece. And when we get this all done, you guys will see this truck.
It's gonna look good again.
It's had a couple motors in it. It's been through a lot with both of us.
Yeah, it's been around a long time.
And I had it for a little while too when my dad passed, and it's just a good truck, and it's never been it's been driven, but it's never been abused.
Never been abused really, and
no,
it's never really seen salty roads.
No,
or anything
never
like that.
has. It's never. I mean, this truck is all original sheet metal. As you've seen on the channel, Barney is, and now Barney's got a freshened up small block in it. The one that was in it before had moments of glory, and I guess it was the same one. Luckily, the contract got wiped out, and it gave us a chance to put a sniper on it, stuff like that. We've both driven it since those changes, and it works well. It really does. It's going to be nice to have this thing back.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
You're going to be happier than hell. And in the middle there, I moved down to McGrath, where I got involved. Did some bigger things that didn't always work out. Service station, body shop, lots of things. Restored a bunch of cars. I met Rick. That was the biggest plus out of it all. Jay, through that, we did restore the Dart. We haven't talked about the Dart much on here. Eventually, we're going to have to introduce the Dart. The Dart's a 72 Dodge Dart Swinger. I'll put some photos up on it when I do this thing. And we redid that. The Dart's a very nice car today. I mean, it's premium.
Yeah, it looks really
From
nice.
where my cousin originally bought the Dart, it was a decent car. It's a premium piece now, even though it's a Mopar. I don't know where that ever come about, but I ain't a Mopar guy. But,
Well, I wasn't either, but they grow on you.
yeah, and then along the way, yeah, this had got built somewhere along that way, and it's changed orientations a few times, which you guys have all seen on the channel, from big block to small block. And now when I packed up and was ready to leave Lethbridge and come to the new place where we are today, we sort of brought the Galaxy with us, even though we'd done a little bit of work on it before we left. Knowing we weren't going to be without a garage for a while. So that's how that kind of progressed, and we've all progressed from there. The other thing I want to talk about was going back to like grade 9. You lost your grandfather.
Yeah.
Was a huge influence on
Yeah.
all.
88, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, and yeah, just the things that Pop, taught everybody, I guess, and the way he was is just a human.
Yeah, just one of those old
Yeah.
stories, right?
School, and that's, we learned a lot from him.
Yep.
Seen a lot from him, and the whole conglomerate of our fathers and everything back then. And then I think about your dad and moving on to this RC stuff, and the stuff we did with him with the RC cars, which started out with Midnight Pumpkins,
Yeah.
the Galaxies, which I'll post, Marui Galaxy. People probably don't even know what that is. And I'll post a picture or two, because I think I have, actually. My question to you today, and I didn't think, do you still have a Galaxy?
Yeah.
Well, you do still have a
I've
Galaxy.
still got it.
Oh.
It doesn't have the blue roll cage on it. It's still
Okay.
it's got the Hunter body, so the Hunter was the same chassis with a different body.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've still got it.
I didn't think about it until after I asked you to bring this stuff. And I remember at one time we had them with the blue roll cage,
Yep.
and I think I had a red roll cage on one at one time too.
Yeah, you did.
And yeah, that being just a huge thing. That's where the whole RC thing
That's where
started.
it started, yeah. That would have been what, 87?
Somewhere where we weren't going to school together, but it was the one thing that really kept us together, I think,
Yeah.
in a big way.
Oh, yeah.
Because we started out with those, just beating them in my front lawn and, having fun with them on the driveway and all that kind of stuff too. Later on, me going on to buy an Associated RC10 and Jay, of course, being jealous of that at the time and everything
Yeah.
else, and me going on to really start competitive racing, which to this day with all the stuff we're doing and me racing in the high school drags, and all that stuff is what started that real competitive path for me. Long before the big cars had happened, I had got into competitively racing these. And now, as you can see by this collection Jay has in front of us, the 3 that are crazy, he's took it to a whole new level. But his dad, going back to this, had a Midnight Pumpkin.
Yeah, he bought a Midnight Pumpkin so he could
Play around with that.
play around with us. When we
Yeah,
were
when we were out
camping and
camping and stuff like that.
We thought it would keep us from hanging out at the
7-Eleven
7-Eleven
and-
with that crowd, right?
Don't worry, we were already doing that anyway. So that kind of stuff, and yeah, that was never going to stop. We were still hanging out with all the neighborhood kids. Actually, we're going to tell a little story about that. I'm one of my 3 best here. Anyway, the other thing was we built a pole sled. And I think that was huge.
Yeah.
Seeing how your dad was able to weld that coat hanger weld, I think that kind of stuff made an influence on what I do today.
Yeah.
Because he showed us, how you go about welding with a coat hanger. We never really did it,
Yeah.
but we seen it and we knew, you could, with an oxyacetylene torch and a coat hanger, put a bunch of shit together. And we built this
Well,
pole sled.
we had an RC car magazine, and there was one you could buy in there. And
Yeah,
I don't remember how much it was, but it was a lot of money in the 80s.
to build a pole. Yeah,
And I showed it to my dad, and I'm like, oh, Mike and I want to do this. And he's like, well, let's just build one then.
Yeah.
So we did. We cobbled together a bunch of stuff, and I still have it. Actually,
That's kind of
Yeah.
funny because I wondered about that too when this
Yeah.
all came. And then the other thing was, I remember one of us, because we were in about grade 10, we were dealing with old shaky icing,
Yep.
and one of us built the box, the tin box.
yes.
You remember that?
Yeah, sheet metal.
I don't know if I built it or you built it, I
Wasn't
can't
me.
remember. So it was probably me,
Yeah.
because your dad had given me the dimensions and we and I built it, and then probably built it nice and squat, and probably kicked me out 2 or 3 times before I got it done. And then I remember painting it red, and that was the slide box on the post. I remember the main piece being like a piece of aluminum I-beam. I think that had plugs or some goddamn thing on a bench.
Channeling for wall plugs, like wiring.
Yeah, and it was just cool. And we built this whole, all together. And then we used it and it worked. And actually, I to this day still have, it's at the other house in my shed. I got a Marui Big Bear.
Yeah, the Big Bear.
And I looked at it the other day because it's still the original body and it has the weight bar on the front of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because we were pulling a pull sled with it. And your dad was pulling a pull sled.
Dad had the Midnight Pumpkin and I had the Lunchbox.
We figured out how to gear them different.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. And now, as you can see, Jay's took this to a whole new level, and we'll put some pictures of his latest creation that we just cleared today in the booth. And I guess you could talk about this one on a little bit.
I just had sort of rediscovered the love of RC, sometime in my 30s again. And at the time, all of a sudden, scale crawling was a thing. And started out with a Tamiya, the hell was that thing? A Toyota Land Cruiser.
Okay, yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I actually remember that one.
So I bought that, and it was cool because the body was really scaled. The rest of it being kind of weird to me. It wasn't real scale, but still a really cool crawl. And then things progressed in that industry, and they just got so much more detail, and it sort of hooked me. And so yeah, now I've got these units in front of me here. Most of them are Traxxas. The first blue one is an RC 4-wheel drive. And I just like to go through and scale them out, weather them, build little accessories for the inside. I hand carved a chainsaw for this one, and built full wooden dashes and stuff for them. You can buy all this stuff 3D printed now, but I like the challenge of getting out the Dremel and some wood and
these things are really detailed, guys. Actually, I'll show some pictures of these things on the camera after. Yeah, it's amazing how Jay has managed to duplicate rust. And this fender on the Chevy, I've been sitting here staring at it, and it blows my mind. It actually looks like, it looks like a Blazer.
Yeah, I mean, I was
rusty in the
trying to
right
get them to
places
rust
and-
in the right spots.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
everything.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And my favorite one is that blue one, but that's because even though I hate shiny, there's just something about a square body like that.
And when I bought that one, I did actually want to weather it out, but then I couldn't bring myself to do it. I needed one shiny one. It looked so nice that.
Yeah, I can see that. And then I put this 18 scale here. I bought this in about right around the time my father passed away unexpectedly in 2010. And I don't know, there was some guys I knew that owned a hobby shop down in Lethbridge, and because I had raced them before, I just kind of thought, well, this is a whole new genre, this little stuff. And well, we chase cats around with this stuff like that. So, it's just something different. We've had a track out back, but eventually I do want to get into one of these crawlers. I just don't think I get as insane with Jay. I got too much big car stuff going on. So
Yeah, and I've got the opposite thing. I don't have the room for all the big shit, so
yeah,
we do the little guys.
yeah. But like I said, this has all led us to, like, your dad showing us stuff, and my dad showing us stuff over time, and the skills that we got in high school, which we were very fortunate in high school when I think about it.
Yeah.
Auto shop, building, construction, sheet metal, all the things we got to do that kids don't today. And trust me, if this channel could ever get really popular, donate some money, it would be to bring that stuff back so kids can actually start learning some stuff.
It should make it come back.
And then, like I said, on to, today's day and age, and we're still doing this stuff, and we've talked about it. Jay's going with me on Miles of Michigan, and we're gonna go do this journey. And I didn't talk much about the van, but we're gonna take a 40-year-old van, do us like a real couple of hillbillies from Canada. There'll be $300,000 motorhomes, and we'll show up in a $10,000 van. And, but I think it's gonna be a blast.
Yeah, we're gonna have fun.
We're gonna have fun, and I think we'll run a little better than some people think too. And yeah, so that's kind of like the full circle of all of this.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, my dad's gone, and your dad's having some health problems, but I don't think we'll ever forget all the stuff they taught us and all the stuff we were able to do.
Yeah, it was a time when you still fixed things, you still did things. Not everything was purchased.
Yeah,
You had to build your own stuff.
and our dads did everything that they had to do, and maybe probably because of it, we had a good life.
Yep.
You know, and growing up in the neighborhood. So I was thinking about a couple other things with the neighborhood, and there was a couple things I was gonna throw out there. And a couple times that I thought of when we were just hanging out in the neighborhood like kids. And so I was gonna hit you up. Just throw out two things that you'll never forget that we did, or that if you can think of it.
Oh, shit.
Like when we were kids, through the whole thing, that you'll just, is there anything you can think of?
Offhand, there was a ton of things.
Ready. Okay, so we were kind of just talking about wrapping this up a little bit, but the one thing I want to talk to Jay about was I thought, what's the 3 craziest shit and things we ever did in like the neighborhood or in general, just, you know, and so I thought about 3 scenarios, and we're just kind of going to talk about them together, because when I asked him, he just wasn't sure, and that's fine. I mean, there were tons, but
There's too much to choose from.
yeah, these are the 3 that totally stick out. So the first one, we were kind of talking about it before, but I think you're going to have to edit it because somebody come walking in here. And anyway, the Stangelmeyer thing, where Gary Stangelmeyer was a young kid, lived 2 doors down from me. He was about 2 or 3 years older than us. And we would hang out with him. And pretty sure though Gary Stangelmeyer might have the same maturity level as us. But anyway, what made Gary a little bit of a character was the stutter and a few things like that. But as a young kid, we were probably, what, you figure 7, 8 years old, something like that. He takes a bear trap, a full-size bear trap, like spring style one, and he sticks his foot in it and gets it out in time by the time it closes. And here's the fucked up thing. He didn't just do it once.
Oh no, yeah, he would do it several times. Yeah.
Like it was like a fucking party trick in some ways for what was going on, you know, back in the day. And I'm just like, wow. So that's something that once you see it once, it'll just, it's just burnt your mind. The next thing was, I don't know, you can kind of tell this one. The Calgary Herald deal.
Oh,
and how it changed probably your outlook on sliding rear windows, you know, forever too.
We were out riding the neighborhood on our bikes. Probably, I don't know if it was a week. I think it was a weeknight. And so the Calgary Herald newspaper building is at the end of our neighborhood in an industrial area. So we like to go down there and ride around.
Hang out on the bike path by the train.
Find some jumps, do whatever.
Yeah.
And so we're riding around the Calgary Herald parking lot. And it's evening, so there's not a lot of cars there. Everybody had gone home, but there was the night shift was there. And we see a pickup truck come in, yeah, and there's a big
park
parking
all the
lot
way at the end of the parking lot.
That's right, yeah. And so we're not really noticing at first, kind of riding around, doing stupid shit. And the next thing we kind of notice is the sliding back window opens up on this truck. And this lady's head comes out the back window.
Out the back window of the truck.
And meanwhile, the driver that brought her there is kind of giving it to her in the front seat of this bench seat regular cab pickup truck, which is kind of impressive in itself.
Yeah.
But being kind of young guys and not...
We were probably like 13, 14.
Yeah.
We were right in that.
Yeah, right around there.
Because we definitely had better bikes, and we had, you know, so I'd say we were right around that age.
So we thought this was the greatest thing once you kind of realized what was actually happening. So we started circling the truck and kind of bugging them, I guess, in a way.
And they were still going at it.
Yeah,
and
they didn't seem to care.
Her head was hanging out the sliding rear window, and the scariest thing was when it was all done. Like they're all done, and the dude gets off of her, I guess you can say, or whatever, and they start driving down to the front of the Calgary Herald. and he drops her off, but on their way down, they're about halfway down the parking lot, and the girl starts
Yeah.
waving at us. She knew we were watching the whole time.
Yeah, she
And
knew we were
she's
getting
just
killed.
And so the guy drops her off so she'd go to work to do her shit. And I was just like, after that, it totally changed my whole outlook on sliding her windows and pick up
Yeah,
trucks.
Yeah. Not only knows if that was her husband or
Yeah,
her boyfriend
what
or
was going on?
something else.
It was something as a kid you'll just never ever forget.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And then the third one that I'll probably never forget because honestly it was going to get me killed was growing up when we first started driving. We never really talked about this much, but it was a big part of our growing up and driving. And that was Old Green. And Old Green was a 74 F-250 Ford with a 390 in it, crew cab, short box truck. And at the time, we didn't think nothing of it. We actually, people thought it's got too many doors and
Well, it was
everything
the
else.
ugliest freaking thing you'd ever seen.
Yeah, it was.
In our point of view at the time.
Yeah, but now to think about owning it, it would be the cool
yeah.
thing. That had 390 in it, C6, 390 ran pretty good, except for it used more oil than gasoline.
Yep.
But it ran pretty hard, and
Yep.
we beat the hell out of it.
We'd put $5-10 worth of gas in
yeah.
it, 2 quarts of
And
oil,
just-
and run her all night long.
And load up 4 guys,
Yep.
you know, and just run the crap out of it and all over Calgary. But one day we decided we're going to take this up in the gully between Deerfoot Trail and 8th Avenue where we lived. We decided we're going to go 4-wheel driving up there. And I'm driving, Jason the passenger seat. Well, I get myself in a predicament where this thing's seconds away from rolling. I think it actually had a tire off the ground.
Oh, yeah, it was tipping over.
Yeah, it was tipping over. And I'm thinking, holy shit. My dad's going to kill me. My mother's never going to shut up, like, because that's the way my mother is. Your dad's going to kill me for putting you in a situation because it'd be all my fault, even though you're there. Well, at the time, I thought it was the craziest thing ever because you opened up the passenger door and bailed out.
Yeah. I'm like,
And the truck is like, you know, if I took one of these, the wheel would be articulated, everything else. But that bailing out was the smartest thing Jake could have ever done because of that, we were able to communicate to get it out of the situation.
Yeah, it took a few hand signals and some
Yeah.
yelling to get you out of that.
And so, yeah, it was a situation, and we knew how much of a situation it really was because we were worried, but we got it out of there, and life went on, and we continued to do more stupid shit with that truck.
Oh, yeah.
It was never ending. It wasn't the first time or
Yeah,
the last time.
it wasn't oil smoke, it was tire
Yeah,
smoke with that thing.
yeah. And I remember running down, we drive down the gully hill more than we drive down 8th Avenue at times. And, yeah, I mean, that was the other thing. Yeah, every corner it went around, the tire was on fire.
Oh, yeah.
Old bias ply, 950, 16.5.
You'd come through the back alley, you had to go through my part of the back alley to get to around the corner where his took off. And he'd come around the corner and that thing would be wide open and it'd be spraying rocks for yards.
Yeah.
And Mike had to be like, there's that goddamn Ferguson again, moving more gravel than Burnco.
Yeah, and yeah, and the weirdest thing was that truck. Now I know what all was with it because I knew everything about it. It had a 331 gear in it. It's geared pretty high for what it was, but it had a fairly healthy 390 in it because once you got the tire turning, I remember that thing turning the tire through all 3 gears.
Oh, yeah.
Like just it's on fire for 3 years, you know. And actually, that's my first. Thanks to that, was my first appearance too in court, the Queen's Bench for doing burnouts in the parking lot. So, anyway, those are the only things I can think of. So, is there anything you want to end this with?
No, other than the fact that it was good days, good times growing up there. We had lots of fun. I'm sure there'll be more stories. There's tons I can think of, but yeah,
I'm pretty sure this summer will be a bit of a show too with this whole thing, and
yeah, we'll have to get some good footage. We got some
yeah.
drone footage. We're gonna try our hand at some drone footage.
We're gonna try our hand at a little bit of everything.
Yep.
Jay's gonna have to learn how to run a camera, and we'll go back to doing what I do and not just drive.
Yep.
And Yeah, and we got an idea how well this car runs because actually me and Jay have had it in Mexico once already. And that was fun too that night when you and me and Jerry went out.
Yeah,
We ran this thing in Mexico a couple times.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So, no, I think we'll end it at that. And, yeah, we'll see what you guys think of this and then we'll go from there. And, hopefully we'll do another one with it, one of these with some other guys. So anyway, like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do the thing. And, Mike's out.
Yeah.
Bye.
Hey guys, Mike here. We're just looking at Jay's RC trucks here, these crawlers. These things are absolutely impressive. From the box liner to there's even a tree hanging off the rearview mirror, pine tree. The license plate all custom made. The detail on these things is just radical. And there's a guy driving. His hand moves with the wheel. The weathered paint, the rust marks. I mean, they're just, if you've ever been around square bodies, they're at a dog in the back window. Bumpers twisted up a little where GM's rot, where they got moisture in the front fender. I mean, it's just the patina on these things is absolutely insane. Chainsaw in the back and wood. And he's hand carved all this stuff. Like, it's just it's a work of art. I don't know, maybe he learned some of this stuff from watching some of the things my dad built over the years. I don't know. My dad was into model airplanes and balsa wood and stuff. And yeah, it's just insane how far he's took this. Like, yeah, it's just unbelievable the detail on these trucks and how he's made the bumpers. Now, this is his boat. We're just in the booth now. And this is a model of a Chris Craft, and it's all mahogany planked and pieces sectioned together, and it's just immaculate, guys. You can't imagine the hours he's got into these things, and we cleared it and turned out excellent. So I'm glad he's super happy with it. So, and it sure looks impressive. So yeah. Anyway, so anyway, guys, this is one of the longest videos I've ever done, and I really hope you guys enjoy this. And like, share, subscribe, and maybe we'll do something else like this down the road. Anyway, guys, thanks, and thanks for all the support and everything else. We really appreciate it. Bye.